Emma sank into the soft embrace of her armchair. The apartment quiet except for the faint hum of the city outside, the streetlights casting gentle shadows through the curtains, and the distant sound of a car passing every few minutes. She had spent the day wrapped in routines, errands, and phone calls, but now finally it was time to unwind. The book in her hands was a comfort, though her mind wandered as she traced the words with her eyes without fully absorbing them, thinking about how lonely the night felt, how the silence pressed against her chest, and how even the ticking clock seemed louder than usual. She had prepared for a calm evening, perhaps a cup of tea, a few bites of chocolate, and the warmth of familiarity, but there was a strange sense that something was about to shift, though she didn't yet know what. The knock came softly, almost hesitant, but it carried an urgency that made her heart jump, a sound that sliced through the calm like a whisper of trouble or a secret waiting to be revealed. Emma's first thought was surprise. It was late, and few people ever visited her at this hour, but the sound was too deliberate to be random. She set the book aside and approached the door, her feet light against the carpet, her hand lingering for a moment on the cold doorknob as if she could somehow prepare herself for what lay beyond. When she opened the door, her breath caught because it was Lucas, her son, standing there with wide eyes and a pale face, clutching a small envelope with trembling fingers, his body slightly hunched as if the weight of the moment pressed upon him. His presence alone spoke volumes. He rarely knocked on her door at night, rarely sought her out with that mixture of hesitation and fear, and seeing him like this immediately sent a surge of concern through her chest. "Mom, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice low and trembling, carrying an intensity that made Emma instinctively step back to let him in, though she already knew that whatever he had to say would be significant, that it was one of those moments that would mark their lives. She motioned for him to enter, the door swinging softly behind him, and the sudden warmth of the apartment felt heavy now, charged with anticipation and unspoken emotion. Lucas moved into the living room, avoiding her gaze at first, his fingers twisting the edges of the envelope as though it contained both hope and fear, and Emma felt an ache in her heart because she could sense the turmoil swirling inside him, the mixture of guilt, worry, and perhaps something more, though she couldn't yet name it. She gestured toward the sofa, and he sat down carefully, as if the cushions might betray him, as if any movement might shatter the fragile balance of the night. Emma poured 2 cups of tea, the steam curling gently into the dim light, trying to fill the room with calm and normalcy, but the air was thick with tension, the quiet only making the sound of their breaths louder, more pronounced, and each passing second seemed to stretch and pull at her nerves. "It's about Anna and me," Lucas finally said, his words hesitant, careful, weighed with emotion. Emma froze, her mind instantly recalling Anna, the girl who had been a quiet presence in their lives for years, whose laughter had lingered in their home during visits, whose letters and phone calls were treasured but always slightly awkward, always tinged with the uncertainty of young love and unspoken attraction. Lucas's eyes met hers briefly, then darted away, his fingers still twisting the envelope, and Emma felt a lump rise in her throat because she understood, even before he said more, that this night was going to be different, that it was going to be a turning point, a night where feelings, confessions, and perhaps regrets would surface like tides they could not stop. I think I hurt her. I don't know if she'll ever forgive me," he said, the words spilling out in a rush, raw and vulnerable, and Emma's heart ached for him, for the pain he carried, for the fear of rejection, for the weight of love that was at once tender and frightening. She reached for his hand instinctively, feeling its slight tremble, holding it gently, grounding him, reminding him that he was not alone, that she was there, that whatever storms he faced, he had a safe place to land. Lucas handed her the envelope then, a fragile, trembling offering of words yet to be revealed. "Read this after I leave, please," he said, and the desperation, the hope, and the fear in his voice wrapped around Emma's heart like a thread of invisible tension. Before she could ask a single question, he rose, the faint creak of the floor beneath his feet marking the distance he put between them, and Emma realized that this night would not be ordinary, that it was the kind of night that would linger in memory, that would shape their understanding of each other, that would test her ability to guide, to comfort, and to hope with him. She watched him move toward the door, his silhouette framed against the dim hallway light, his back straight but hesitant, and she felt a mixture of pride, worry, and curiosity, knowing that the contents of that envelope held truths, confessions, and perhaps a chance for healing that neither of them could fully imagine yet. When the door closed softly behind him, The apartment felt suddenly emptier, quieter. The ticking clock sounding louder than ever, marking the seconds in a way that was almost unbearable because now the weight of anticipation filled every corner of the room. Emma sat down again, the envelope resting on the table before her, and she stared at it, hesitant to open it, sensing that doing so would be like opening a door to emotion she was not yet ready to face. The tea she had poured now sat forgotten, the steam curling and fading into the cool night air, and she felt the pulse of life, love, worry, and tenderness intertwining, shaping the night into something unforgettable. She thought about Lucas, about the boy who had grown into a young man filled with emotion, sensitivity, and courage, about the lessons of love and pain he had yet to learn, and about the role she would play in guiding him through the complexities of the heart. The minutes passed slowly, stretching like hours, and the city outside continued its quiet rhythm, indifferent yet intimate, as if it too were holding its breath, waiting for the revelation that would come from the paper in her hands. Emma's mind raced through memories of Lucas's childhood, his laughter, his first crushes, his shy glances at Anna during family dinners, the way he had always carried his heart on the edge of his sleeve, and she realized that tonight was part of the natural unfolding of love, mistakes, forgiveness, and growth, that this night was the kind of moment every parent feared and cherished simultaneously. Her fingers finally lifted the envelope, tracing the edges as if by touch she could feel the emotions it contained, and the anticipation made her pulse quicken, made her heart thump in a mixture of fear and excitement. She thought about the long nights she herself had experienced in youth, the confessions she had made, the letters she had written and received, the moments that had defined her own understanding of love, and she saw in Lucas the same tender vulnerability, the same yearning, the same need for connection and clarity. She wondered what he had felt in walking to her door, how he had gathered courage, how he had struggled to find the words to speak the truth without faltering, and she felt a profound respect for the young man he had become. The envelope was small, ordinary in appearance, but to Emma, it was a vessel carrying a world of emotion, a promise of understanding, and a challenge to confront feelings both hers and his. She lifted it, turning it over in her hands, imagining the words inside, imagining Anna's handwriting, imagining the raw, honest thoughts that Lucas had either shared or that Anna had penned in reply. The night felt thick, almost tangible, the darkness pressing against the windows, yet inside the apartment a glow lingered, a sense of something important about to unfold, a sense of love in its rawest, most honest form. Emma's eyes drifted to the door he had closed behind him, and she felt both the absence and the presence of her son, a paradox that left her heart fluttering and aching at the same time. She realized that this envelope was not just about Lucas and Anna, but also about her role in guiding, loving, and supporting, about the delicate balance between intervention and letting go, about understanding that sometimes the most profound lessons of life come in quiet, unassuming packages carried by the people we love most. She set the envelope on her lap, the paper cool against her hands, and she took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the night, the gravity of emotions, and the delicate beauty of love in its most unguarded form. The tea, forgotten, began to cool, the aroma faint and comforting, a reminder of warmth and stability in contrast to the emotional whirlwind swirling inside her. Emma closed her eyes for a moment, imagining Lucas walking home under the night sky, imagining the courage it took for him to knock on her door, imagining the bond between two hearts separated by distance, emotion, and unspoken truths, and she knew that the envelope held not just a story about love, but about growth, understanding, and the silent, powerful connection between parent and child. She opened her eyes, her resolve strengthening, ready to face whatever words awaited her, knowing that they would mark the beginning of a journey of understanding, forgiveness, and the fragile, powerful force of the human heart. And with that thought, she gently lifted the envelope, her fingers brushing the delicate folds, ready to uncover the story that would forever echo in her mind and in her heart. Lucas sat on the edge of the sofa, his fingers nervously twisting the hem of his shirt, the envelope resting on the table beside him, and Emma watched him quietly, sensing the storm of emotion swirling inside him, the mix of fear, guilt, and longing that made his body tense and his movements hesitant, and she poured a cup of tea for both of them, the warmth of the liquid a small comfort, though the tension in the room was heavier than the steam rising from their cups, the clock ticking loudly, each second stretching the moment into a fragile suspension of time that seemed to hold their breaths and hearts captive. And then Lucas finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper, carrying the weight of unspoken thoughts and emotions. It's about Anna and me. And those words made Emma's chest tighten, memories of Anna flooding her mind, the girl who had been a quiet presence in their lives, whose laughter had once filled the apartment during family dinners, whose letters had brought shy smiles to Lucas's face, and whose name had carried the magic and awkwardness of first love. And now, hearing it in the hushed tone of night, Emma felt a surge of concern, realizing that whatever Lucas was about to reveal would not be simple, that it would involve hearts, choices, and consequences that were far beyond ordinary conversation. And Lucas's eyes met hers for a fleeting second, filled with a mixture of hope and fear, before darting away, avoiding the direct gaze that could have betrayed too much too soon. And Emma reached for his hand, holding it gently, grounding him, letting him know that whatever he needed to say, he did not have to face it alone. And for a moment, the room felt suspended between the quiet hum of the city outside and the storm of emotions inside, a delicate balance of tension, anticipation, and care. And then Lucas's voice broke through again, trembling and fragile. "I think I hurt her. I don't know if she'll ever forgive me." And the words hung in the air like fragile glass, delicate and sharp, capable of breaking hearts or opening paths to understanding. And Emma's mind raced through possibilities, wondering what had happened, what he had done or failed to do, what feelings had been left unspoken or misunderstood. And she felt a deep empathy for the young man before her, realizing that growing up meant facing moments like this, moments where love and mistakes intertwined, where emotions were raw and vulnerability was necessary. And she gently squeezed his hand, letting him know without words that she understood, that she was there, that together they could navigate the complicated terrain of the heart. And Lucas shifted slightly, the tension in his shoulders easing just a fraction, but his eyes still held that anxious fear, that longing for forgiveness and clarity. And he handed her the envelope with a shaky hand, a physical symbol of the emotional weight he carried, and said, "Read this after I leave, please." And the earnestness in his voice, the mixture of hope and trepidation, made Emma's heart ache and her mind race, imagining what words lay folded in paper, what confessions, what explanations, what emotions might spill forth in ink. And before she could respond, he stood and moved toward the door, each step deliberate but hesitant, leaving Emma with the envelope on her lap, her heart pounding with curiosity, concern, and the profound awareness that this night would be remembered, a night where emotions were laid bare, where love and regret intertwined, where courage and vulnerability met. And she watched him disappear into the dim hallway light, the door closing softly behind him, leaving a quiet echo that seemed louder than any sound, a reminder that the night had changed, that nothing would remain as it was, that the ordinary world of calm and routine had been interrupted by the extraordinary weight of feelings and confessions. And Emma turned her attention to the envelope, feeling its edges between her fingers, smooth but filled with unseen tension. And she imagined Anna's handwriting, neat and careful, or perhaps bold and passionate, and thought about the courage it took for anyone to express their heart honestly, especially in matters of love, fear, and the possibility of hurt. And she thought of Lucas's young face, the way his eyes had held worry and hope, the way his voice had broken as he admitted uncertainty and guilt. And she understood, profoundly, that this was part of growing up, part of learning that emotions could not be contained, that love was complex, and that honesty, though difficult, was the first step toward healing and connection. And she pictured the many nights he had spent thinking of Anna, of moments of closeness, laughter, missteps, silence, and longing, all culminating in this single night, in this single knock at her door, and how this small, simple act carried with it a cascade of emotion and meaning far beyond the surface. And as she lifted the envelope, the paper slightly crinkling under her touch, she felt the anticipation coil tightly in her chest, her fingers tracing the folds as if by touch she could absorb the emotions hidden within. And the room seemed to grow still, the city outside indifferent yet somehow intimate, as if it too were waiting, holding its breath for the story contained in a few sheets of paper. And Emma thought about her own experiences with love, regret, and courage, about the moments in her youth where words had been left unsaid, letters left unopened, confessions delayed. And she felt a deep connection across generations, recognizing the universal vulnerability of hearts seeking understanding and forgiveness. And she breathed slowly, centering herself, feeling both the weight of responsibility and the delicate beauty of the moment, knowing that her reaction, her empathy, her presence, could shape the way Lucas navigated the next steps of his heart. And she felt proud, sad, and tender all at once, realizing that parenting was not just about guidance, but also about witnessing, supporting, and sometimes simply holding space for love to unfold in its own complicated, beautiful way. And she opened her eyes fully, the envelope still in her lap, and felt the warmth of the tea long gone cold, the faint aroma lingering like a reminder of comfort amid turmoil, and she knew she would read the letter soon, absorb the words, feel the emotions, and prepare to be a guide and witness to Lucas's journey through young love, heartbreak, and hope. And the night stretched on, heavy and alive, filled with quiet expectation, anticipation, and the promise that the story of hearts intertwined, of mistakes and forgiveness, of courage and vulnerability, was about to unfold. And in that quiet living room, Emma felt the profound intimacy of being part of someone else's emotional journey, the kind of experience that shapes memory, deepens understanding, and connects hearts across the silences of night. And she realized that love, in all its messy, tender complexity, was worth every tremor, every pause, every heartbeat that made the night feel alive. And as she lifted the envelope carefully, finally daring to peek inside, the room seemed to hold its breath with her. The faint city lights casting gentle shadows, the hum of life outside contrasting with the electric quiet within. And she read the first line, the words unfolding like petals, the emotions pouring out with clarity and rawness, and she felt the weight of their significance, the delicate beauty of honesty, and the unspoken promise that despite mistakes, fear, or heartbreak, love always had a way of reaching hearts willing to listen and understand. And as she continued reading, the emotions deepened, her heart swelling with empathy, sadness, and hope, realizing that this night would linger in memory, that Lucas's courage, Anna's honesty, and her own tenderness would weave together into a story of connection, forgiveness, and the quiet power of heartfelt words. And she knew that the moment, the emotions, and the revelations would resonate far beyond this night, leaving echoes that would shape their lives and hearts, guiding them toward understanding, compassion, and the gentle magic of love in its most honest and vulnerable form. Emma held the envelope tightly, her fingers trembling slightly as she slowly unfolded the paper, and the faint scent of ink seemed to fill the room, carrying with it the weight of anticipation, hope, and the quiet ache of unspoken emotions. And as she read the first lines, the words leapt off the page like soft whispers meant only for her ears, Anna's voice flowing through the sentences, full of honesty, longing, and a vulnerability that made Emma's chest tighten with empathy. And the letter spoke of nights spent awake, of thoughts circling endlessly around Lucas, of the courage it took to reach out despite fear of rejection. And Emma felt a surge of emotion as she imagined the moments Lucas had missed, the times he had hesitated, the glances unshared, and the tiny gestures that had gone unnoticed, each carrying unspoken meaning and emotion. And Anna's words wove a delicate tapestry of love, patience, and gentle heartbreak, recounting the little details of her affection, the quiet moments that had become precious memories, the longing that had grown in silence. And Emma's eyes blurred as she imagined the two of them, separated by circumstance but bound by feeling, each carrying the weight of their own mistakes, each learning the fragile art of honesty and courage. And the letter continued, confessing fears, regrets, and hopes, the kind of words that could only come from a heart willing to risk everything for love. And Emma felt as if she were witnessing a quiet storm, a swirl of emotion that was both heartbreaking and beautiful. And she paused for a moment, letting the words sink in, imagining Lucas reading them, the relief, the hope, the lingering doubt, the rush of emotion that must have accompanied each line. And she realized how deeply love could touch a heart, how mistakes could sting yet also teach, how distance and silence could sharpen longing and courage. And Anna's careful but passionate words reminded Emma that the human heart, though fragile, was resilient, capable of forgiveness, connection, and profound understanding. And as she continued reading, she felt the subtle rhythm of emotion, the ebb and flow of affection and vulnerability, the tension between past missteps and future possibilities. And she saw how each sentence carried both honesty and hope, how Anna's heart was open, raw, yet patient, and how the young woman was extending not just love but also trust, allowing Lucas to see her feelings without judgment. And Emma felt a quiet pride, thinking of how Lucas had been nurtured to be capable of receiving and understanding such openness, and how love, though complicated and sometimes painful, had the power to teach, to heal, and to create connections that lingered long after moments passed. And she imagined Lucas reading further, the tension in his chest easing with every word, the fear of rejection softening, replaced by understanding, hope, and the recognition that honesty, no matter how difficult, could bridge even the most daunting gaps between hearts. and Emma felt a swell of emotion herself, tears threatening to fall as she traced Anna's handwriting, imagining the courage it took to write each word, the careful shaping of sentences meant to communicate feeling without overwhelming, the balance between longing and restraint, between desire and respect, and she saw in it the reflection of every tender, complicated first love, every heartbreak and reconciliation, every moment of vulnerability that defined growing hearts and maturing emotion, and the letter unfolded into memories, anecdotes, small admissions of affection and quiet concern, moments where Anna had noticed Lucas in ways he had not noticed himself, small gestures that had lingered, unspoken words that had weighed on her mind, and Emma felt herself swept into their world, the intimacy of letter writing allowing her to witness the depth of feeling, the richness of human emotion, the drama and tenderness of love unfolding in quiet, powerful ways, and as she read the middle of the letter, Emma felt her pulse quicken, sensing the mixture of longing and uncertainty, the way Anna had balanced hope and fear, confession and caution, honesty and gentleness, and she realized how rare it was for hearts to be both brave and careful at once, how love required risk yet demanded patience, and how the lessons embedded in these pages were as much about character and growth as about romance and desire, and the words painted pictures of evenings spent thinking of each other, walks imagined and shared in memory, quiet moments replayed. In the mind, laughter remembered and cherished, and Emma felt the warmth of connection, the quiet ache of longing, and the beauty of hearts willing to communicate deeply despite fear of pain. And as she neared the end of the letter, she saw Anna's careful, hopeful closing, a tender invitation for understanding, a soft gesture toward forgiveness, a delicate expression of continued affection, and Emma felt the full impact of what this night meant. The bravery of two hearts striving to be honest, the power of words to heal, to comfort, and to connect, and she knew that the path ahead for Lucas and Anna, though still uncertain, had been irrevocably changed by courage, honesty, and the willingness to feel deeply, and the envelope, once a simple piece of paper, had become a vessel of love, a testament to vulnerability, and a reminder that emotions, when acknowledged and expressed with care, could transform lives. And Emma set the letter down gently, feeling the lingering energy, the quiet promise of new beginnings, the emotional resonance of shared feelings, and she realized that Lucas's journey, his growth, his courage to face love honestly, had been mirrored and amplified by Anna's own bravery, and that in witnessing this exchange, even indirectly, she had become part of a larger story of love, hope, and the delicate art of human connection, and the night felt fuller, richer, more alive than any ordinary evening, carrying with it the promise that hearts willing to be open, honest, and patient could find not just understanding, but joy, tenderness, and the quiet thrill of knowing that love, even when complicated, was always worth pursuing. And Emma smiled softly, her eyes lingering on the envelope, on the words that had already begun to shape the emotions of two young hearts, and she knew that this story, this moment would echo in her memory, a reminder of courage, intimacy, and the enduring gentle power of love expressed honestly, tenderly, and without reservation.